perineum, the last part of the abdomen. So perineum is the lowermost part of the abdominal cavity. If we make the abdominal cavity a kidney-shaped structure, that is the sagittal section of the abdomen, the level of the umbilicus, the pubic symphysis, the sacrum, 2-3 pieces of the coccyx. This line shows the pelvic plane, below is the pelvic cavity. So the lowermost part means starting from the tip of the coccyx up to the pubic symphysis. So this is called the perineum, the lowermost part of the human body, and it is also called the bottom of the human body, and there is a bucket is there. So the lower part of the bucket, this is the perineum. So this is how we exemplify what is the perineum of the human body, the lower part of the bucket. So it is the lowermost part. So this is the pelvis, is the lower part. If we want to see the lower part of the abdomen, it comes the lower part of the pelvis as well. So in order to see the full view of the perineum, we have to put the position of the cadaver or the human body in a special position, that is, the body is lying at the edge of the table. And this is called the lithotomy position. So in the lithotomy position, we can see the full view of the what is called the perineum. So this position is very common in the gynae department for all the procedures done for the examination of the vagina as well as the pregnancy stage. So this is the vaginal opening. If a female is lying with the umbilicus, so what is the position of the pelvis? How we view the pelvis? So this is the position of the pelvis. We are seeing the pelvic outlet. If we see the pelvic from the above, this is called the pelvic inlet. So this is the pelvic outlet. So that is the position of the perineum as well as the what is called the lithotomy position. So what are the bony points here in this position? So in the midline, here comes the pubic symphysis. This is the pubic crest. And this is the subpubic angle, that is the istiopubic ramus. And where the istiopubic ramus ends, there comes the ischial tuberosity. This is the ischial tuberosity. And here comes the tip of the coccyx in the lithotomy position. The lower angle of the pubic symphysis is closed by a ligament here, which is arc-like, which strengthens the lower border of the pubic symphysis, is called arcuate pubic ligament. Because it is arc-like, so it is called the arcuate pubic ligament. And from the tip of the coccyx to the medial surface of the ischial tuberosity, there lies a ligament that is called the sacrotuberous. Sacrotuberous ligament closes the boundary of the posterior boundary of the perineum. So there is the sacrotuberous ligament. So in this way, a diamond-shaped area is created. So this diamond-shaped area is called the what is called the perineum, or the lowermost part of the human abdomen or the body, with all its boundaries anteriorly by the arcuate pubic ligament, laterally by the istiopubic ramus and the ischial tuberosity, and posterior-laterally by the sacrotuberous ligament, and posteriormost part is the tip of the coccyx. So that is the diamond shape, what is called the perineum. So it is a very difficult part, but if you go systematically, then it becomes easier what is the perineum actually. And so a imaginary line is drawn at the level of the ischial tuberosity. So this diamond-shaped area is divided into two triangles. One is the anterior triangle, which bears the openings of the urethra and the vagina, and posterior in front of the coccyx is the anus, the anal canal opening. So as we know, in the pelvis there are the pelvic organs. So just behind the pubic symphysis lies the urinary bladder. You have done it. And apex of the urinary bladder is connected to the umbilicus by the urethus. And this urethus keeps the bladder always in a midline position, whether it is 500 or 1000, it doesn't go here and there. And it doesn't press any neighboring organ. That is the function of the urethus, which is the remnant of allantois, allantoic diverticulum. And this urinary bladder is actually like the samosa you eat. So when you eat the samosa, just before gulping it down, just hold in the anatomical position. It is exactly telling each and every borders and surfaces of the urinary bladder. Otherwise, it is very difficult to understand the surfaces and border of the urinary bladder. So if my hand is like this is the urinary bladder. This is my apex of the urinary bladder, this is the superior surface. Posteriorly, this is the base of the, because base always lies opposite the apex. And these are the two lateral surfaces, and these are the anterior border. These are the superior-lateral borders. So this is how exactly you make the hand like this is the urinary bladder. If you make the hand like this, what you have made? Cerebrum. Superior, lateral, inferior, and the medial surface. If you make the same hand like this is your left hand, this is liver. Left lobe, right is bigger. Anterior, the inferior border is very, very sharp and well defined. Posterior border is indistinct. This is the posterior surface. Superior surface. Superior, posterior, superior, anterior, superior. Right surface, anterior part. And whichever part is facing downward is the inferior surface of the liver, which got so many impressions of the viscera around it. So exactly with the hand, in same position, you can make three organs. Cerebrum, urinary bladder, and all these three are very, very difficult to understand if the borders and surfaces they are marked. So this is the easiest way, the easier way to understand what is the anatomy throughout your life, and you can also tell to the other people. Simple by the hand. So urinary bladder is there, and just behind the urinary bladder, here in front of the coccyx, there lies the anal canal, 38 mm long, with all its features, and this is the anorectal junction, the rectum is there. So anus is directed backward. It's not horizontal. This is the urethra. And in the female, in between is the uterus, whose vaginal opening is anteriorly diverted. And above is the uterus, which is also anteversion. So its angle is over the urinary bladder. And the parietal peritoneum becoming the pelvic peritoneum. It covers the superior surface of bladder, then covers the fundus of the uterus in the female, then the posterior, a little bit of the posterior surface, then it is reflected in front of the rectum, and then the same becoming the retroperitoneum, then become the diaphragmatic, and again becoming the parietal. So this is the pelvic surface of the pelvic peritoneum. The space between the rectum and uterus is called the pouch of Douglas, and this is called the vesico-uterine pouch. So spaces are created because of the folding of the. So this diagram is very, very important. It can come in any examination. The pelvic spaces or positions. So we study the perineum into two parts. The anterior triangle is called the urogenital triangle. Urogenital triangle because it contains the urinary opening, urethra, and the vagina. Because there are three openings if you see the perineum is having. Urethra, vaginal, and the anal canal. If you see from below, this is the same. See, they are all in line, and all these three pelvic organs, they are lying one behind the other, and all are below this arcuate line. So below this arcuate line is the true pelvis. Above this pelvis is the false pelvis. So all the three organs, they are lying like my three fingers, one behind the other. So they are all adjusted here with the peritoneum holding them in their anatomical position. So horizontal triangle and posterior triangle, this is the anal triangle. Because only anus opening is there. And this anal triangle is also called the anorectal triangle. Anorectal triangle, or also called the ischiorectal fossa. Ischiorectal fossa. Because on one side is the ischium, on the other side is the rectum. So this is the ischiorectal fossa. So this part. So this is how we will finish with the perineum into two triangles, horizontal and the anal triangle. So better we take first the ischiorectal fossa, which is easier. So as the position of the bones we already know, now we will focus our view on the what is called the anal triangle. And what is the other name I have told you? This is also called the ischiorectal fossa. So we just make it bigger one, enlarge it. The ischial tuberosity in the position, the sacrotuberous, the tip of the coccyx, and here lies the anus or the anal canal opening outside. So these are the sacrotuberous ligaments. So this is the lithotomy position. We see the anatomy of the anal or the ischiorectal fossa. Now in the dissection part, first we will cut the skin here and we will reflect it later. The first layer of the human body is the skin. In order to explore what we are eager to see what lies deep to the skin in this triangle, that is the anal triangle. So first cut the skin and reflect it laterally. Then what do you expect below the skin? What will come? Yellow color, fat everywhere. So there is a yellow color fat is there. It means you are seeing the superficial fascia held by the loose areolar tissue and contains cutaneous artery, veins, nerves, and everything is there. So this is all surrounded by the fat, superficial fat, and it is too much in amount. Because I already told you, fat is the packing material of the human body. So wherever the necessary is there is a lot of fat is present. So this is fat. When we remove this fat, what we expect, what you got? Number 3 layer of the human body, that is the deep fascia. So we will get the deep fascia. And deep fascia in this region has got a special name because of its shape. It's called the lunate fascia. Lunar, moon. So moon is very favorite for the anatomist. Lunate fascia is another name of the deep fascia here. So this is here the deep fascia. After removing the fat here, which is also called ischiorectal fat, because it lies in the ischiorectal fossa. Because this area on both the side of the anus or the rectum is called the ischiorectal fossa. And here this stuff is too much of the fat. So if this lunate fascia is there, if you see from here, it is like this. It is not flat. It is like this. Why? Because we have packed so much of the fat here. So it becomes, in our horizontal, it becomes concave towards us and the convex towards us. So that is how we do. Another important thing in the examination, if the question comes the ischiorectal fossa, you have to make a special diagram, that is the horizontal section of the anal triangle at the level of the anus. Body is lying in the lithotomy position, in this supine position, and you have cut which cut? This. If you cut the horizontal section, what you get? That you have practiced. So here, what is cut here? The ischial tuberosity lesion. So this is the ischial tuberosity. The bone, so marrow. These are the marrow we have shown. That is the ischial. Then, from ischial tuberosity to the anus, there is nothing. It is hollow. Then, the anus or the anal canal. And anal canal above is continuous with the rectum. And rectum is continuous with the anal canal. So anal canal is 4 centimeter or 38 mm. We have done it. And all the features of the above 15 mm, middle 15 mm and lower 8 mm you should know how to draw and how to explain. This question is very, very tricky and important also. So this is the skin covering it, the perianal skin, this is the anal canal. The upper 115 mm contains the anal columns, anal walls, anal gland, comb-like line that is called the pectinate line. So this is the pectinate line. So pectinate means, in the anatomy, pectinate means comb-like. In the hair in the comb. So we have done in the heart also, right atrium, musculi pectinata. Why they were called musculi pectinata? Because they were having comb-like pattern. If you open the anterior rough part, you see the cardiac muscles in the anterior wall of right atrium, they are arranged like this. This is also comb-like. This is called the pectinate, word is using for it. And lower 15 mm is bluish color because of the presence of underlying mucous membrane is the stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized. It is bluish color because underlying of the rectal venous plexus, internal rectum. The lower 8 mm is true skin with sebaceous gland and without any hair follicle and sebaceous gland. So this is how we do the anal canal. And outside the anal canal, there lies and this line is called the white line of Hilton. Because white line of Hilton shows the lower end of the internal rectal sphincter, which is involuntary, eye for eye, involuntary, outer is voluntary, both in the urine bladder also, in the rectum also, remember. Inner sphincter is, inner rectal or inner urinary sphincter is eye for eye, involuntary, supplied by sympathetic and parasympathetic. External rectal sphincter and external urinary sphincter, they are voluntary because they are supplied by somatic muscle. So that is the difference. So this is the external sphincter, internal sphincter, then there is a external sphincter which is circular. Both are circular, internal and outer, but having 3 parts, deep part, superficial part and subcutaneous part. 3 parts of external sphincter. And in between there is a longitudinal muscular pouch. So this diagram is the anal canal. And this is the anorectal junction. And here lies the anorectal junction, the muscle that is called the hemoglyc levator ani. And levator ani is covered superiorly by the superior pelvic fascia and inferior pelvic fascia of the diaphragm. So medially anal canal and anus at the rectum and laterally ischial tuberosity and more posteriorly the obturator internus muscle covered by the obturator fascia is there, and this is the skin covering the anal trunk. So that is the position. So this is skin, below the skin is superficial fascia, and superficial fascia means everywhere yellow color fat. So this is the yellow color fat. If you see the dissection part, so this fat is called the ischiorectal fat. skin, solar fascia, and what expect here? D fascia. And D fascia, it is not horizontal. It is becoming convex because of the presence of so much. We have stuffed so much of the fat in it, so that it becomes moon shape. That's why its name is what is called lunate fascia. So that is the lunate fascia. You should know what is it. So why there was a need to fill so much of the fat, so that the D fascia has become what is called lunate fascia. The reason behind is for the rectum. What the word rectum means? Straight. It has to be in the midline. It has to be diverted right and left. So this is the column of the fat packing material in body. It has reached up to above the anorectal junction. And because of the stuffing of so much of the ischiorectal fat, rectum will always in the midline position. This is the reason why there is a plenty of the ischiorectal fat. Everything is logic behind everything the God has done into the human body when you read the anatomy. Your eyes are surprisingly widened. There's so much architecture is there, no architect can make it. Each and every organ has got some specificity. So this is the ischiorectal fat, and above this fascia, what do you expect? What did he? Fourth layer of the body, muscle, the same muscle. Muscle is levator and eye. So the same sequence is this: skin, solar fascia, deep fascia, and the muscle. If you remove this deep fascial muscle, you directly go into the abdominal cavity, the greater sac. So this is the sequence. How you easily understand what is the ischiorectal. Regarding its applied anatomy of the number one is the fistula in ano. Fistula in ano. Same you have also done in the. And this is, then comes the perianal sinus, or also called the ischiorectal abscess. So these are the two important applied anatomy related to the ischiorectal fossa. So this diagram you have to practice whenever a question of the ischiorectal fossa. So fistula in ano, what happens? And ischiorectal abscess. So injury to the perianal skin is very common. If some drying pin is put over here and you are just sitting on it, around your anus, somebody has put the drying pin on your bench, it will go inside. The tip of this drying pin is infected, so the bacteria will enter your ischiorectal fossa into ischiorectal abscess. So ischiorectal this pus is formed here. Bacteria will grow like anything because there is no obstruction. And fat is also a tissue of the body. It is supplied by the artery and drained by the vein. So infection will be there, it will spread, and slowly whole of your ischiorectal fat will be a pocket of ischiorectal pus, or what is called the abscess formation. Abscess means pus formation. And this is the property of the pus. Wherever it is there, it try to spread out. So it will spread in all directions. If it is go like this, there is the obstruction of the two muscles, longitudinal cord. If it is spread in this direction, there is the obturator fascia covering the obturator internus muscle. Or that is the ischial which is the bone. It can't invade it. Superior it can't go because it is tough, deep fascia, thick bundles of the collagen fiber, the lunate fascia. So the easy target is the skin. So perianal skin around our anus is very soft. So what will happen? The pus will come out here. You start discharging from this. And this opening of the discharge is called the perianal sinus. So patient comes with the complaint of the foul smelling discharge or pus discharge from the perianal area of the skin. So this means this is the ischiorectal abscess. Now in other people who are very poor or having very immune system is very low, as in the patients admitted in the hospitals or otherwise, this pus will also make a way through the external sphincter and internal sphincter, and it starts discharging through the anus. One is here, pus is discharging on the sinus also, and pus is also coming from the anus also. And from the fecal matter, the bacteria will also enter into the ischiorectal. If sinus is there, if patient doesn't go for a doctor, for the physician, so now the bacteria will enter from the skin. Normal commensals, staphylococcus will go inside. And normal commensals of a GERD, they are the tetanus, they will go inside. E. coli, they will go inside. And the condition will be deteriorated. It becomes more infected by the entrance of the fecal matter and the E. coli. And from skin also staphylococcus is all open. So there are two openings of the discharge from the ischiorectal abscess. This is called the fistula. Fistula means two openings. One is internal, other is external. Anywhere in the human body, from head to toe, if patient comes with less, we label that is having the fistula. So they call the fistula in ano, means anus. Despite the sinus or the perianal opening, one discharge is also from the anus also. So that is called the, how you explain what is the fistula in ano. Now another thing we have to do now, finishing with the ischiorectal fossa of the anal triangle. Now we come to the, so this is how we have made the ischiorectal or the anal triangle. So this is the anus. Around the anus there is a sphincter that is called the external anal sphincter, and this is the attached to the perineal body, and posteriorly attached to the tip of the coccyx, that is called the anococcygeal raphe. And this purple color is the lunate fascia. On this side we have removed the fat. After removing the fat, we see that is the lunate fascia in this anal triangle. On either side, this is the sacro-tuberous ligament forming the boundary of what is called the anal triangle. So we have removed the skin, sul fascia, and the deep fascia still. So that is the anal triangle. Now we switch on to the next part, that is called the urogenital triangle. So we will focus on the urogenital triangle and see and seeing the dissection part of it, what we got here in the urogenital triangle. So urogenital triangle, as we have seen the boundaries, the pubic symphysis, ischiopubic ramus, the ischial dubrow. And lower part of the ischiopubic symphysis is closed by a arcuate ligament, that is called the arcuate pubic ligament. We strengthen the pubic symphysis joint. Pubic symphysis is a joint between the two pubic bones. And on either side there lies the obturator foramen, and this obturator foramen is closed by a membrane that is called the obturator membrane, and outside there is the obturator externus muscle, and inside there is the obturator internus muscle, as this is the obturator internus, will be covered by the obturator fascia. So this is the ischial tuberosity on either side. The line is drawn, this is the urogenital triangle. So likewise, when we remove one by one exploration of the urogenital triangle, we want to see what lies here. So first is the skin. The second layer you will see is the fatty layer of the superficial fascia, continued from the abdomen. Third, we will see the Scarpa's fascia, or the membranous layer of the abdomen. Now, I have told that when it comes into the perineum, its name changes to what is called Cooley's fascia. So now this is Cooley's fascia. Fourth, we will find the below the superficial, both are superficial. Now the deep perineal fascia. When we remove the deep perineal fascia, what do we expect? The muscles. The muscles will come. And when you remove the muscles, there will come a membrane, special in this area, the perineal membrane. Below the perineal membrane, again the muscles. So this is the 7-layer exploration of the what is called the urogenital triangle. So first we will cut the skin and remove it. This is abdominal position. This is the position of the umbilicus, the abdominal part. So skin is removed. Below this skin, what we expect? There is a yellow color fat. So same fat is continuous on the thighs also, and the fat is also present as a Camper's fascia we have done is continuous from the perineum to the abdomen as well. Then above the pubic symphysis and midway between the umbilicus. So in the abdomen we have done what start here, a special fascia that is called Scarpa's fascia, that is the membranous layer. The same membranous layer is coming in front of the pubic symphysis, body of pubis, and it is also continued into the perineum as well. But its name is called Cooley's fascia. But it doesn't go into the anal triangle. It ends where the line is drawn separating the two triangles. So that is the end of the Cooley's fascia here. And when we remove the Cooley's fascia, we find another fascia, what is called the deep perineal fascia. Deep perineal fascia. Same rule as anywhere. The fascia, below the superficial fascia, you will find the deep fascia. So deep fascia is there and deep perineal fascia. But you should know what is the attachments of deep perineal fascia. Number one, laterally ischiopubic ramus. Posteriorly, it also ends like the Cooley's fascia. Along the same line, it ends. It doesn't go into the anal triangle. It ends here. Then anteriorly, that is very, very important, underline it. When we trace it anteriorly, now it is going into the deep fascia, into the abdomen. This is deep perineal fascia, the deep fascia of the perineum. It is going into the abdomen, which doesn't have got the deep fascia. See what happens here. So here, this deep fascia, the perineal fascia, after attaching from the ischiopubic ramus, it is continued into the abdomen, and it is continuous with the rectus sheath. Underline it. It is not given in your book. So this Cooley's fascia from the perineum is continuous with the rectus sheath of the abdomen, which acts like a deep fascia of the abdomen. Having two layers of the aponeurosis, posterior layer, anterior layer. So it is continuous with the rectus sheath, anterior wall of the rectus sheath. Then, when we remove the deep fascia, what do you expect? Muscles. Right here, muscles are there. And these muscles in the deep to the deep perineal fascia. The name of the muscles they are ischiocavernosus. Second is bulbospongiosus. Third is superficial transverse perineal muscle. So three muscles we encounter when we remove in this urogenital triangle. We know there are two openings are there. One is the urethra in the female, vagina is also here, urogenital triangle. So go into the names of the muscles. Ischiocavernosus. So muscle is telling there, ischio means it origin. So it originates from the ischiopubic ramus. Then second word is cavernous. We have also done the cavernous sinus in the head and neck. What is the word cavernous means? Cavernous sinus. Why it is called cavernous? Because this sinus is having multiple pockets. Its lumen is divided into small pockets by septa inside it. Same is here. This muscle is also having the spaces in between their group of the fibers. They are the cavernous spaces, they are filled with the blood. That's why it is called the ischiocavernosus muscle. This is the muscle of the penis or the muscle of the clitoris in the female. That is called the ischiocavernosus. So, like all other muscles, origin, insertion, action and everything. So this muscle take origin from ischiopubic ramus, from here. That is the origin. Ischiopubic ramus. And from the ischiopubic ramus, this goes into the shaft of the penis. It goes into the shaft. This is the origin and insertion. Insertion is in the penis or the clitoris. And muscle fibers, they are widely separated because of the presence of their cavernous sinuses. So that is called the ischiocavernosus. In the penis, if you cut the transverse section of the penis, we got the two muscles arranged laterally. This is called the corpus cavernosum. This is called the corpus cavernosum is the formation of it. So they are the muscles. Origin, insertion. The action we will deal later on. Action. Then come the bulbospongiosis. Again going to the name. Bulbo means it is bulb-like. Spongiosis means it is spongy in texture. So bulbospongiosus muscle is the muscle of the urethra. It is around the urethra, and because of its spongy nature, it gives the space for dilatation during the passage of the urine. So that's why the name is bulbospongiosis, the muscle around the urethra. So urethra is here, going into the penis on the ventral aspect. That is called the corpus spongiosum is the name. And this muscle, that is called the bulbospongiosis, takes origin from the posterior part, right and left, they decussate and form a bulb-like structure. They take origin from the underlying perineal membrane, which is below it. And then this muscle goes around the base of the urethra and encircle the urethra. So this is the superficial part. Then the deep part is at the base of the starting of the urethra. Then it has got a superficial part. So fibers, they go on the dorsal aspect of the urethra. They encircle the urethra and they go around the urethra. And on the dorsal aspect, they also cross. So that is called the bulb-like, that is called the bulbospongiosis. So when the urine is not passed, the urethra is collapsed. But when the urine is passed, so we all know that the urine comes with a very high speed. And because of the speed, the urethra has to be expanded. So this is why bulbospongiosus muscle has been provided. And whole of the urinary tract has been lined by transitional epithelium. Why? Because starting from the pelvis of the kidney to the ureter, the urine when it comes with a speed. So transitional upper layers of the transitional epithelium, they are wither off every day because of the fast passage of the urine. That's why a special epithelium has been provided only in the urinary system, not found anywhere in the any system. This is the reason. The urinary epithelium, uroepithelium is transitional. Why it is called transitional? Because the transitional means short-lived. After 24 hours, new cells they form. Transitional, the transient. So that is why this is the. Posteriorly, it takes origin from perineal body. Perineal body is a musculo-tendinous node present between the urogenital and the anal triangle. We call the perineal body. It is musculo-tendinous node, as we have done in the head and neck, modulus. So modulus was also the musculo-tendinous node, where there is convergence of so many muscles. So it's the same is. The third muscle is superficial transverse perineum. So this is the transversely lying muscle. Superficial it is called because DB is also weighted. And this muscle taken from the medial aspect of the ischial tuberosity. The ischial tuberosity medial aspect. And where the insertion? The perineal body. So that is the superficial transverse perineal muscle, which gives the origin to the bulbospongiosity. So this is how we do the muscles. Origin, insertion, now come their action. So, and their nerve supply. So nerve supply of the perineal structures comes from the pin relations. Remember PI and pin. When you do the lower limb, it will be clear. So pin are the three structures attached to the what is called posterior or the dorsal surface of the ischial spine. So this is the ischial spine. So this I am touching the dorsal surface. The dorsal surface here is touched by three structures. P for pudendal nerve. I stand for internal pudendal artery and vein, one of the branch of internal iliac. N stand for nerve to obturator internus. So they remain together. Pudendal nerve is a somatic nerve, root value S2, S3, S4. Same nervized erigentes you have done in the urinary bladder. S2, S3, S4, they are sympathetic, parasympathetic, but this is somatic, coming from the spinal cord. So this is the three structures. And all these three structures, they are attached from, first they touch the dorsal surface of the ischial spine. From the dorsal surface, they come on the inner to the, this is the urogenital triangle. From here, they now run over the obturator fascia, over the obturator internus muscle. And from here, they reach the urogenital triangle and between the anal triangle junction here. So that is the course of the, what is called the, these structures. One is the pudendal nerve, internal pudendal artery, and third is the nerve to obturator internus. So they are related to the ischial spine. After the ischial spine, now all they come down, and over the, this green is the obturator fascia, covering the obturator internal muscle. So this is the course from the ischial spine touching, they are coming down, and where they are reaching? They are reaching at the junction of the urogenital triangle and the anal triangle. So here we see the pudendal nerve, internal pudendal artery, vein, and so all are coming the course over the obturator internus. So here this pudendal nerve now will divide into two branches. One going into the urogenital triangle is called the perineal branch, and another is going towards the anal triangle is called the inferior rectal nerve. And this inferior rectal nerve will supply the somatic nerve, voluntary muscle, that is the external anal sphincter. External anal sphincter is supplied by the inferior rectal nerve, which is the branch of pudendal nerve. Another branch which is going to the urogenital triangle is called the perineal branch. And this perineal branch will supply the all muscles here. Ischiocavernosus, bulbospongiosum, and the superficial transverse perineum. Accompanied by it, the artery comes. Internal pudendal artery, it supplies the ischiocavernosus and all the muscles. One of the branch of the larger branch of this internal pudendal artery will go inside the middle of the ischiocavernosus muscle and in the middle of the corpus cavernosum. And it divides into a star-shaped manner and supply the pockets here, and accompanied by this the vein is there. So when blood flow increases due to the sympathetic stimulation, vasodilatation, So the spaces between the cavernous spaces between the ischio-cavernous muscles, they are filled. Because of the filling, what happens? The muscle fibers, they go away from each other. And this causes the erection of the penis or the clitoris. So why the clitoris is in fact dilated? Because of the rush of the blood into the cavernous spaces of the ischio-cavernous. So that is the special muscle, the blood supply, the branch of the internal pudendal artery is supplied it. So if there is some obstruction is there, like the coronary arteries, or if the atherosclerosis is there, same, it will lead to the infarction. And it gives the dysfunction of the erection. So erection is obstructed. So like the coronary artery, nowadays stunt also put into this artery. And stunting will increase the blood flow and the erectile dysfunction is reversed. So that is the latest development in the arterial supply to the ischio-cavernous muscle. So this is how we do the muscle here. Then we remove this muscle, we find the perineal membrane. So perineal membrane is a triangular membrane, just deep to the these muscles. And its attachment is again important. Laterally it is attached to the ischiopubic ramus, but posteriorly it doesn't go into the inner triangle like all other, and all three are fused. Perineal membrane, the perineal fascia, and the Pully's fascia. So they are all fused at this line. Anteriorly, just below the pubic symphysis, the perineal membrane ends a horizontal thickening that is called the transverse perineal ligament. Transverse perineal ligament. And it has got so many perineal opening, you have to make the drawing level question comes. In the male and female is different. So they call the transverse perineal. So there is a gap between the transverse perineal ligament and the arcuate pubic ligament. And through this gap, there passes the deep dorsal vein of the penis and the dorsal nerve of the penis. The gap between the two, these are the structures to be remembered between the two. When we remove this, now we get the last part. That the another muscle layer is there below the membrane. One is called the, around the urethra there is a muscle that is called the sphincter urethrae. This muscle is the sphincter urethrae. It takes origin from the ischiopubic ramus. Sphincter urethrae is the muscle taken from the ischiopubic ramus and go around the urethra. This is the most dilated part of the urethra. And this muscle, as it is supplied by the somatic branch, so it is voluntary. We can withhold the urine for some time because of this muscle, that is the sphincter urethrae or external urinary sphincter lying in the urogenital diaphragm. And in the female, there is another muscle is there. The same muscle which is present around the urethra also surround the vagina in the female. And because of the vagina, so it is also voluntary. So female can squeeze the vagina also to withhold the menstrual blood flow for some time. So that is because both are having the same nerve supply and same contraction of the urinary bladder as well as the vagina. So if in some female it is exaggerated, then it is called the vaginismus because of the spasm of the muscle is there. So it will lead to the painful coitus. So intercourse becomes painful because of the contraction of the muscles around the vagina. This is the another applied anatomy related to this. Another muscle is present. Is the last muscle is the deep transverse perineal. Again inserted on the perineal body. Other one was superficial, other is called the deep perineal muscle. So this is the what we see in the third layer. Dissection by dissection, we explored all the 7 layers. Now the first muscle we have done. Actually these muscles are the contents of the superficial perineal pouch or space. superficial perineal space. And last muscle we have done is the deep perineal pouch of the space. So two spaces are created because of these 7 layers. One is the superficial perineal pouch of the space, other is the deep perineal pouch of the space. So question is asked usually, explain the superficial perineal pouch and the deep perineal pouch. So if the question comes the superficial perineal pouch, so you will write that this is the space between the deep perineal fascia and the perineal membrane. And what is the deep perineal space? It is the space between the deep to the perineal membrane and above the levator ani muscle. When I remove these muscles, what I will reach? I will reach into the pelvic cavity. And pelvic cavity is covered by a muscle that is called this muscle. The pelvic inlet and outlet is covered by a muscle that is called the levator ani muscle. Levator ani muscle having 3 openings: urethra, anus and the vagina. And these muscle fibers, they take origin from the 3 bones: pubic, ilium and ischium. From the pubic, they take origin from the pubic posterior surface of the pubic bone, pelvic surface. And these muscles, they form these 3 slings around the 3 openings. One sling formed around the anus is called the puborectalis muscle. Then pubovaginalis. Then pubourethralis. So they are the U-shaped fibers of the medialmost muscle, that is the pubococcygeus. All insertion on the coccyx tip. That we call the pubococcygeus, the part of the levator ani. Then next bone is the ilium. So ilium part takes origin from the obturator fascia covering the obturator internus muscle. So there is a white line is there over it. So from the here the fibers there go. So they are called the iliococcygeus. The insertion is on the coccyx. And then laterally from the ilium, then they reach that is the ischial spine. That is the ischial spine. The last fibers of the levator ani from the ischial spine to the coccyx is called the ischio-coccygeus, or only the coccygeus. So this is how this is also called the pelvic diaphragm. So pelvic outlet and inlet is closed by a hammock-like muscle. It's not a horizontal. See, it is hammock-like. It is cavity-like. So that is called the levator ani muscle. And it is all like all muscles. So this muscle is also covered by a fascia. This fascia will be called this levator ani is called the pelvic diaphragm. Otherwise, if you put all the 3 organs, they will come out: bladder, uterus, and the rectum. Why they are held? Only because of this diaphragm, or what is called the horizontal sheet of the levator ani muscle. So that is the levator ani. So this is how we do the levator ani muscle, that is the pelvic diaphragm. So the superior surface is covered, called the superior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. If we see from below, so this is covered by another fascia. This is called inferior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. So this is very confusing. What is superior and inferior? So that you have to write down the, always whenever any question come about the perineum, always think about the lithotomy position. So lithotomy position will tell which is superficial, what is deep. Either fascia or the pouches. So never do the vertical position. Always put the position in the lithotomy. Then it will easier and everything will be understandable. So this is how we do this is the fatty layer. Below the fatty layer is the membranous layer, that is called the Cooley's fascia. So when it comes into the perineum, it becomes triangular in shape. So that is the Cooley's fascia. And after the Cooley's fascia, now comes this. This is the Cooley's fascia. It is continuous superiorly by the rectus sheath, rectus abdominis muscles. And when we remove it, then we find the muscles of the superficial perineal space: ischiocavernosus, bulbospongiosus, and transverse perineum, all supplied by the branches of the pudendal nerve anterior. And this is the ischiocavernosus forming the penis, having the bulbospongiosus. White one is the urethra, and they are the ischiocavernosus or the corpus cavernosum muscle. And if you remove this superficial perineal pouch, below you get the perineal membrane. In the female, 2 openings, and in the male, it is having 1 opening. Anteriorly, there is a transverse perineal ligament. And when you remove the perineal membrane, you reach the deep perineal pouch or the space with all its muscle, sphincter urethra and sphincter uretrovaginalis, and then deep transverse perineum. So this is how you explain. If you remove it, just deep to this, what you find? Pelvic diaphragm or the levator ani muscle. So this is how simplification you can understand the perineum.